what's your name?
My name is Manuela Restrepo.
Okay, and so Manuela, you interned with me 2 years ago.
2 years
now,
ago, yeah.
Right? And what were you doing at the time you were interning? Were you a student or were you?
No, I had just come back to Montreal from grad school.
Right.
And I was volunteering and interning in different things, and this was one of the things that I was doing when I came back.
That's right. And Sharif told you about it, I think.
Yeah, because Sharif told, because Julie Norman told him about it,
right.
and then he told me about it.
God,
Yeah.
and you knew Julie from McGill?
From Concordia. She was actually my teacher who got me into human rights. It was thanks to her that I ended up getting a master's in human rights. I say,
Oh,
yeah.
terrific.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. And by the way, today is July, what is it, 20th or something like that?
19.
19th, 2016.
Yeah.
Okay. So what did you think about the internship? What was the most interesting thing? What was something surprising? Whatever you would like to say.
What did I think about it? So for me, it was extremely interesting just to get to hear the stories. So as much as you read papers or you look at this, it's different to get to hear the stories from people themselves. So this was something that was had a big impact for me.
Yeah.
And then feel like I was contributing. I don't know if this is very selfish to say, but even if I'm really far, that I was contributing to your contribution. That I hope that at some point is gonna make a difference.
Yeah.
So that was something I like. Surprising. Well, I developed a skill that got my internship.
so happy about that.
It was thanks to this, and I had never transcribed before. But then I learned how to do it, and then I was able to use that in the job that I have now. That's how I got into the job that I got now. So life is funny.
So it's wonderful. So before I want to hear more about your job and how this helps lead you in that direction. But do you remember anything about the interviews you did? It was a while back, but
It was 2 years ago. I did, and I worked on many that people had started, and I kind of filled gaps that were there.
yeah.
I just remember. Yeah, I just remember them being stories, a lot of courage. So just people who were saying that they had to, the way they used their phones and the way they had to hide their stuff in an other office. I don't know. There were just a lot of things of people really being there and having to figure out things like right now, what do we do? And we need to think fast and make sure that we protect the people. Like the most important thing was protecting medicine or whatever they had to figure out things to make sure that people were in the middle. That's what stayed with me. It was just like they were always trying to figure out what to do to make sure that people were respected. So it's not like it might affect me personally, but we have a larger cause, and you could see it with most of the interviews that I worked on. I remember that's something that
I think you worked on some who were talking about the day they were arrested.
Yeah, the
February
raid, the day
3rd,
of the raid.
2011. They detained 30 plus people, and you worked on a lot of interviews.
I worked on a lot of little gaps because I think I joined a bit later than everyone else.
And so you were kind of pulling together all the unfinished things.
Yeah.
That
I did
was
a lot
really
of that.
helpful. Yeah. No, when I was looking over some interviews, I was like, oh, I forgot Manuela worked on that one. Oh, she worked on that one too.
I worked on a lot of little things, and I don't think I have any details that I remember, but I just do remember the stories of a lot of courage and people who
so courageous. Right. And so did you ever guess you'd end up transcribing for a living?
No. So I only did it for 6 months, but like I told you, so thanks to a friend of mine who works at a foundation, she told me about a consulting firm. They were doing a project about some dialogue interviews of 50 Canadian leaders to try to see Canada as it's coming to 150th birthday. What have we learned? Where are we going?
I remember you telling me.
So they needed an intern, and then right from there, I applied to this internship, having a skill that it's not very common, and was that I knew how to transcribe and that I had experience doing it.
Right.
And so I got that job, and now from that internship, I ended up getting a job as a project manager in the consulting firm. So
And what's the name of the organization?
So it's called Rios Partners.
Yeah.
Rios means flow in Greek. It's and the idea is how to help people move forward when they're stuck. So
Yeah.
this idea of flow of moving forward and trying to
Yeah. And they do good in the world.
so they're a consulting firm, but kind of with social ends. They want to do
Yeah.
work that makes a difference and that complex challenges with a lot of stakeholders from different places who need to come together to work
Yeah.
to make a difference in areas such as food, in the food industry, in the energy sector, in health, in democracy, in
Yeah.
human rights. Yeah, they do work in different areas.
And mention your zip code project.
So we're working on a project now that it's trying to look at health equity in the U.S. and how people are working in silos. So people who are working in urban planning, and some people are working in food industry, and some people are working on health.
Yeah.
But how all these things are connected,
Yeah.
and how we need to try to look at this from a larger perspective to try to understand, to help these people who often their zip code determines their health
Yeah.
and their health and more than their genetic code, and it's just because of all the surroundings. So how everyone that is currently working in silos, how can we create a space where people can come and experiment and create a
Yeah.
social lab where they can experiment with different iterate different experiments they can see that can affect all these determinants and all these determinants of health with
Yeah.
instead of having people working in silos. How do we create a space where people come together and try to find ways to experiment so that they have an impact in a larger, less siloed way,
Right.
and have an impact in this with these people whose health. So it's obvious